Hello and welcome. My name is Bruno Kurtic, founding VP of Strategy at Sumo Logic. I'm excited to moderate a panel on running a competitive real-time digital business with our distinguished panelists today. Sumo Logic is a cloud-native platform for observability and security. In essence, we help our customers build, run, and secure their mission-critical, customer-facing, revenue-generating digital services and applications. Our customers come from all industries and all geographies. Digital transformation has been around for decades. We just didn't talk about it in the same terms as we do today. The term digital transformation is relatively new, but it has really been going on for a long time. What it really means, digital transformation, is when technology permeates traditional products and services. There are many examples of this in your life. For example, your doorbell can now tell you who's at the door, even when you're not at home. Your car can tell you where your next gas station is when you need to fill up your tank. Your retailer is in your pocket. You can buy anything, anytime, from anywhere around the world, and it'll be delivered to your doorstep. Your technology can monitor your heart when you sleep, when you run. They can monitor your oxygen levels so you know how fit you are. And you can compete with your neighbors about who is more efficient in using energy and electricity during peak times of the day. All of these things are examples of digital transformation. And digital transformation is continuing to accelerate. And even in light of the fact that we have just gone through 18 months of grueling pandemic, global pandemic, it seems to be accelerating. And that can be explained through behavior of humans as well. We as humans have had to curtail what we do, how we do it. It has stopped being safe, for example, to go to a grocery store, to go to work, to go to school. It's hard to entertain, to go to a ball game, buy your goods and services that you used to traditionally go to a store to do. And these service providers and retailers and companies that help us go through our daily lives have had to adapt in order to help continue to serve us. So what they've turned to is digital technologies to reach us without having to force us to go out of our houses. These behaviors and the changes that we have gone through during this pandemic are probably going to stick even after the pandemic. So we can think of the pandemic almost as an accelerant to digital transformation, a discontinuity, if you may. When an enterprise goes through digital transformation, they become a software company. They start writing software that encodes their desired competitive, differentiated business model into technology. And this type of software can't be bought off the shelf. Nobody knows how you are going to differentiate your business. It's no longer available to be bought through ERP systems and other things. So companies are becoming software companies. They're hiring engineers. And in essence, what they're doing is they're building digital services. And digital services are a component of technology that power digital business models. And through this transformation, enterprises are becoming digital service brokers. They have to manage the life cycle of these digital services, leverage them, put them together into products and services they offer to their customers. And digital services are different than traditional software. And traditional software, when I talk about traditional software, this is not software that's from long ago. This is software that's not much older than even 10 years ago. The traditional software, for example, life cycle of traditional software used to be measured in months or years. Today, the life cycle of software is measured in days or hours. Many companies ship new software to production on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And they do this because they're trying to innovate faster, because software has become the product. It permeates everything they do for their customers. And rate of innovation means you're building your software faster, delivering new products and services to your customers, and therefore you're more competitive. Not only that, but the software no longer runs in a data center. More than 60% of digital services run in the cloud. And they run in the cloud because we're trying to evolve the hardware underneath our software at the same rate as we're evolving our software. And that's very important because that creates efficiencies, allows us to scale better, and allows us to deliver higher quality and better software to our customers. And finally, we've broken down the traditional monolithic architectures into smaller components in order to improve how we deploy these components, how we maintain these components and these digital services, how we evolve them and how we scale them. And as we break down the monolith, into more and more components, that's creating technology that is far more evolvable and can be deployed and managed more efficiently. So these types of properties of new digital services are really improving our software and technologies, but they don't come for free. They come at some cost, and the cost is the cost of complexity. Things that change rapidly, things that go to production multiple times a day are harder to manage. The growth in components, as we break down the monoliths and create microservices and deliver componentized applications that serve our customers better than traditional software does, are harder to manage because it's harder to keep track. A digital service for a company might involve as many as 1,000 microservices to run that business. The tech stack is expanding from traditional software into open source, cloud services, and you have to find talent that is able to not just build these digital services using the expanding tech stack, but also manage it, understand it, and grow it. And as technology proliferates and digital services grow, the data grows exponentially. It grows essentially at the rate of Moore's law. And capturing that data, understanding what it's telling you, and doing that in real time so that you can run your business is not easy. And finally, all of this proliferation is broadening the attack surface, and it becomes harder and harder to secure. Now, don't despair. The return on investment on this new type of technology is far greater than the drawbacks that we're talking about here. And so embrace the complexity because it is good for your digital business. And I'm excited to move into the panel discussion where our distinguished panelists and discuss more how they and their customers run competitive real-time digital businesses. I am delighted to moderate today's session on how to run a competitive real-time digital business and to introduce our distinguished guests and digital transformation experts. Laureen Knudsen, Chief Transformation Officer at Broadcom, Tiran Deegan, Chief Digital Officer at Cognizant, and Shadab Kanwal, MD, Digital Data Analytics at Charles Schwab. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to go through a set of questions, and let's start today with Laureen, and then you guys please jump in as you find these questions interesting. How has digital transformation affected your organizational processes and teams as they build digital services that power your digital business or power your customers' digital business?
It's an interesting thing with Broadcom because, as I think a lot of people now know, I'm in the Broadcom software division, and Broadcom was a very traditional semiconductor, wireless, hardware business, and now they've bought software companies. And our software division, I think, is the 5th largest software company in the world or something like that. So it's grown very quickly. And we have everybody from, Rally Software that was part of the CA acquisition that was born and bred Agile as an Agile organization, creating software to manage Agile, teams back in 2001, who's always been Agile, always been SaaS, always delivered multiple times a day, to the very traditional teams that we're bringing along. So it's an interesting play. Being a software company, digital transformation is also a little different, right, than hardware companies that are now learning to be software companies. So we run the gamut, and it's interesting and it's exciting, right, because you can show people how teams that grew up Agile work and who have that streamlined, fast, can get things from ideation to the market really quickly, and show them that it can really happen. We actually invite our customers into our planning sessions for that team. And we often hear things like, I've read about this a million times, but now is the first time I've actually seen it working. This is the first time I see it in reality. Globally, all companies are struggling with this right now, and how to make sure that they can stay competitive and keep up with the truly Agile organizations that can move up to 1,000 times faster. I think the Everest Group recently did a research study and found, right? So it's, everybody along the way, but everybody trying to move as quickly as possible. And then the speed also then tends to take out innovation, right? So when all you're focused on is speed, innovation dies in a company. So we're trying to help these organizations globally as well, all of our customers, understand how to wrap that back in and plan for innovation as well as continue in their efficiency practices and digitizing more of their organizations.
I think what I wanted to add is that we are living through a time of disruption, and our clients, our company, and our industry, everybody is experiencing a lot of change. Client expectations for financial services and digital are accelerating. Our competitors continue to rapidly expand their services. And the way we work in our daily life is also evolving. So post-pandemic, consumer plan for continuing their digital consumption has increased. We have seen that to find the right balance of digital and human interaction is imperative for customer satisfaction, because we see that there is an increasing demand for more personalized experiences, and new investors are flooding in the marketplace across all demographics. So all of our efforts are, and our strategies are clear, consistent, that we continue to succeed as we evolve. So this evolution is kind of a virtuous cycle, which is fueled through client eyes strategy that we have, where we continue to drive the sustained growth. So this is a process where digital has played a critical role in translating Schwab's vision to be the most trusted leader in the investment services.
Yeah, I love the points that Lorraine and Shadab have raised. I would say that when you build on top of the need for product innovation and the shift to more digital processes and capabilities, the view that I see into the market, because the organization that I lead creates industry offerings across 13 industry subsegments in a part of Cognizant that's over $2 billion in revenue, is that companies are now across all of the industry segments, they are starting to see the convergence of industries. So you're seeing companies like Google playing in healthcare and telecoms playing into smart cities, et cetera. And so what they're doing is that companies are starting to realize that legacy revenue streams have to be augmented, not just with digital revenue substitutes, but there are opportunities to solve other industries' problems, leveraging the capabilities that legacy dominant players bring to the market. And we all know that every company is in a different place in their digital maturity, but this is a completely different new trend. Not only do I need to be completely digital, cloud-enabled, cloud-ready, but I also have to help figure out how do I, as someone who does not live in another industry, help bring solutions to the market that will enable that industry to become more digital.
As a technology company, we see these trends across our customer base, and we see sort of the level of maturity in transformation. We see the sort of the struggles and the acceleration of innovation that comes with it. And, so I absolutely understand what you guys are all saying. Let's move on. One of the key things in any business is how do you measure success? How do you define success, either in your business, digital businesses, or in the businesses of your clients and customers? And have you seen and have you had to adapt how you measure success as they are shifting towards digital transformation? And what types of KPIs do you or do your clients use to measure success?
Accelerating our competitive position for the future is our focus, and in order to do that, we measure how will we deliver better client service at scale? How will we deliver more personalized experience? How will we deepen our relationships while capturing new customers? So there are multiple, avenues to obtain that data, and also to understand that the type of value that we are generating and the relationship to the business capabilities, how based upon that data, we try to configure our capabilities in such a way that instead of supporting capabilities, they become steering capabilities. And in specific focuses where we need that specialist capabilities, we want to make sure the decision and critical thinking tasks, which may require deep technical and functional skills, are built within the company in such a way that we are able to deliver using a split location model with a core team close to the customer, and with having strategic hubs for talent availability and or cost. So, cost synergy is a big, focus for us, and it comes through those knowledge intensive hubs that I mentioned, in terms of making sure that we have clear responsibilities set to create the direction and enable that strategy.
It's been interesting, like I said, being bought by a hardware company that did not traditionally sell software. Our whole sales model changed, and we changed to be measured this year solely on our customers' happiness with our products, right? So we're now being measured not on how many sales did you make, right? We don't actually, when we make a sale, that's just the beginning of the work, right? Because then we have to get our customers to adopt. So our whole focus is on, now we're trying to actually push through to the point where we're measuring not just our own customers' happiness, but our customers' customers, right? So how can we help our customers make their customers happier? So we're coming up with a whole different customer value chain, and we're testing out a lot of theories that we have. We like to say we're running a hypothesis-driven business, right? Where we know the objectives we want to meet, and then we keep testing how to best get there. It's interesting because actually doing that, you sort of eliminate competition. So we no longer really worry so much about those that are competing in our software areas. It's how can we work with them? How can we get our customers the best data sets that they can get? How can we help them run their businesses better? And because we're helping to do that, it's helping to create our success. So our measurement is solely really focused 100% on our customers and trying to make them as successful as possible.
Customer happiness index. I like it. We should really define and make an industry concept around it. Kieran?
Very, very close to home. All of these points are exactly why, for instance, my role got created, leading industry solutions, was because as a large IT service firm, Cognizant is very strong in all of the what we call horizontal areas, analytics and managed services and outsourcing. But we are a global company, and our clients are global, but they don't buy horizontally, right? If you're in an insurance company, you buy because you're looking for a partner who understands your business. So we have very significantly shifted, talk about KPIs, to a focus on verticalization of solutions. That's our go-to-market. On top of Lorraine's point, we also, just like the cross-industry convergence that I mentioned before, we're very heavily invested. How do we help our customers help their customers get new value from traditional products and services? So it plays both ways. It's a B2B to B2C, and sometimes another B in the middle.
It's really interesting, all of your perspectives, how similar they can be between different companies and different businesses. And we are, again, in the software business, and we deliver our software as SaaS. And our first core value for our culture that we define is we're in it with our customers. And it's all about how well are we serving our customers? How happy are they with the services that we provide and technology we provide? And everything is now boiling down into outside-in objectives. We set the objectives, we measure against them. We believe also in if you measure it, you can improve it. And so we're trying to, quote unquote, measure the customer happiness index. But I'm going to use that internally now as a rallying cry with our teams to make sure that we continue keeping focus there. So thank you for that perspective. That was fabulous. Can I transition a little bit more kind of into the more technical side of the conversation? Maybe not so much technical, but how important is reliability? And when I say reliability, I mean things like availability, performance, security to your real-time digital services and businesses, or how important is that to your clients as they serve their clients and their customers?
Well, we all live in an always-on and constantly connected world, whether you're providing services to consumers at home, or if you're a media company streaming content. That availability is very critical. We've all seen the wave after wave of attacks against large infrastructure and major tech firms. So in a lot of conversations with C-level, the concern around the security of information and the reliability of their infrastructure is a very big one. It coincides with the fact that many companies are still in the transition to be cloud ready, and it's not enough that you have your back end or your front end. It's a very through strategy to be a digital player. And these two of availability and reliability is even more so critical when your competitors are coming from outside your industry. You look at a market service firm called Rakuten in Japan that has launched one of the first virtual 5G networks. Virtualization of telecommunication services is on the forefront of the telecom industry, but here you have a new entrant who is pure play digital, and it has a massive impact on how do you plan your infrastructure and your roadmap. Everything has to shrink and to accelerate, shrinking timelines and acceleration.
Reliability, yeah. I mean, performance, reliability, all of that. That's kind of the forefront of what your customers measure you on, right? And so as SaaS products, even on-prem products, we integrate to don't always stay up as well as we would like them to, right? From an integration standpoint. So it's even with B2B type situations with customers, our end customer, right, is we're trying to integrate with other companies' software and making sure that all of that reliability and performance is where you need it to be. I think with the integrations and to the points that Taran was making, right? The infrastructure and where we are today, and even the remote workforces that we're dealing with today, hit into all of these areas, right? Are you as secure? Are you as reliable? And can somebody else come into your market tomorrow and take that over? It's a whole nother level of disruption that we haven't really had to deal with before, but it makes it a lot easier for 20 people sitting at home in their houses around the globe to appear like a large corporation to our customers and things. So, making sure we've got all of that in place as a fundamental piece. I think these days people expect it more than it's a nice to have or good to have.
Yeah, and Shadab, maybe from your own internal Charles Schwab perspective.
Okay, so the important thing is to realize that reality that we are faced with in terms of adoption. And as more of the adoption in digital realm increases, more of the expectations, also increases of always on. And it's considered to be like a utility sort of a service, that model that we are going to, that adoption is taking us. Now that makes us to think that, that how our digital ambition, that we created in the beginning, is translating that digital potential to become the digital fit, in terms of the digital efforts that we are going towards. So that's where that always on is a higher bar, continuously, propagated, promoted through our interactions, through our experiences. And that's where a lot of organizations which are moving towards to compete with the digital native organizations are investing a lot in it.
Our perspective is a little bit myopic. We actually deliver technologies that help our customers with reliability of their digital services. And what we hear from them is that it is absolutely critical to stay competitive because their customers are fickle, right? It's so easy to switch when you are switching between digital services today. There are no physical distance constraints anymore that we have to worry about. And so it looks like that reliability and availability and security are becoming real sort of criteria for competitiveness in a digital business. And so it's really interesting to hear your perspectives on it. If I move on to maybe a little bit about how you achieve some of these things, like how does data and analytics play a role in managing both the reliability of your and your customers' businesses, and how does data analytics play a role in understanding the customers or customers' customers, and improving digital products and services? How has the role of data and analytics changed as companies become more and more digital? Shadab?
Yes. So data is the fuel, the oil, the asset that we capitalize upon in terms of creating those experiences that we want to realize in the space of translating those experiences such that, they become more seamless and more easier from a convenience perspective. But customer data is one of the biggest factors that kind of helps that process to be understood from a 360 customer perspective, where we are able to look at all of those factors that help us to identify the issues, the problems, and effectively see what areas do we need to converge and invest upon. And that helps us to build the business cases and effectively partner with the experts to plan and organize our efforts. It is a repeatable process where we go with the customer success mindset and effectively try to prioritize and scale those capabilities that are needed based upon those customer input, customer feedback. And that also helps us to define and establish those cross-functional products and talent that enables those products within the organizations.
Jumping off what Shabad is saying, when you have stuff in operations now, I've been in software for 30 years, and in the old days, it was easier to monitor what was in production. These days, with the containerization of things and stuff, it's just too hard for people to do that monitoring. So we're finding that, organizations are using, now software that's doing the machine learning and the AI, AI ops is a whole big term that's being thrown around, right? And so that you're starting to run your business and your operations in different ways. So it's not just the data that says how reliable you are or how performant you are. It's taking all the AI that's coming out of that as well and having people who can now read that versus be able to, work on command lines and things of the old days, right, that kept things up and running. And there's so much more, our softwares are spread out amongst so many more servers these days with the way that things are architected. And it's just requiring a whole different way to look at these things. So we're also working with our customers to help them keep their stuff up, keep it running, have their end users not see failures and faults, right? But have them be able to predict that first and make changes that can keep their customers up and running. I think we've all heard the 3-second abandonment rate if you don't, if your customer finds something at fault with your app. So being able to help our customers keep up and help companies all around the world do that and keep their software up so that their customers can use it is hugely valuable.
I love how you brought up AI ops, Lorraine, and I would extend that, having an inside-out cross-industry view. This is a massive trend, not just in managing operations in your technology and your internal services. It's becoming the competitive advantage, both for cost of operations and launching services. So we're seeing, for instance, CSPs, communication service providers, who are using AI ops to predict that an issue that consumers are calling into the call center are going to be resolved anyway, or alternatively with automation, preemptively closing, for instance, tickets at the help desk, completely changing the model of, are we going to send a truck out or a service crew for a problem that we already know is going to be solved, to edge analytics, where you're embedding analytics collection, for instance, for consumers who are streaming content, so that you can see what kind of device are they using, how fast is the streaming, what's the CDN, what is the file, and what are the issues that I need to fix all the way in my source supply chain. So data analytics is not just about passive reporting any longer. It is becoming a competitive advantage. We just closing the loop. We partnered with XPRIZE in the last few months, and there were a group of 100 scientists from 39 countries around the world who competed to leverage the model that was based on a predictive machine learning data set to predict where COVID is going to go in the next few years. So I see this as having a deep impact on operations, on the commercialization of new products and services, and in improving our lives.
We're the data business, and we see our customers having to shift their mindset about how to leverage data when they switch to digital business, because when you change your customer interface from a human to human to technology to human, that technology will generate thousands of bits of telemetry, very granular telemetry about that interaction. And being able to capture that data, understand what it's telling you, improve your products and services, understand how well you're serving those customers is critical, right? But the challenge there is that data is also growing at a rate of Moore's law, right? It's growing exponentially. And so being able to capture it cost effectively and analyze it in real time for real-time input is really critical. So
I just wanted to comment on that, because the big shift that we're seeing is that in the past, it was about how can you take massive data sets ingest them and synthesize them. Now it's the opposite. We're working also with outside partners who are telling us, no, don't filter the data. We want the terabytes of data coming every day, because when you throw these machine learning algorithms, they will go after creating and finding the insights. The bigger, the better. And that is a massive shift set.
Yeah, I guess just to add to that point, we are continuously investing in those AI capabilities to expedite and personalize, experiences, and to reduce that human bias and hence increase productivity. But we are learning that the value of AI and machine learning is dependent upon the data that it is fed. Therefore, if the data is not fed clean, clear, consistent, accurate, all of the quality issues on the data, the outcomes are going to be affected by the same.
Yeah, fascinating world that we're living in today, and we're all sort of learning how to cope with the data, and both of your comments are completely make sense. So when we as we think about the data and analytics, I'm curious what you guys are seeing with your customers and your own organizations as you sort of leverage data and analytics. How does the tooling change? Have you had to change your tooling that captures this data that is used to measure reliability, security, and customer analytics in order to better manage yours or your customers' digital businesses? Like, what properties of the tools that today need to be used for digital transformation are our customers or enterprises seeking, and whether they're seeking those because of something that's missing from the traditional tooling for data and analytics?
Yeah, it's interesting because we sell some of those tools and create some of those tools that do that monitoring. We had customers really pushing on security, and so then we acquired part of Symantec. And so it's right, bringing all of that together. I think what we're hearing is similar to what was mentioned earlier, where customers are wanting all of the data combined in a way that they can then make sense out of. But we're also hearing, like, we're having some customers who wanted every single alert coming out of a product to be stored. And then they realize that's just sort of trash data that they're storing, and it just gets really expensive, and it also slows down some of the other systems. So it's trying to now funnel out the right data without funneling out anything that's usable or useful, or even could be useful in the future. There's a lot of things that come on the market, that'll come on the market in a year that'll make data that we thought was trash data now, usable. So how do you keep the right information but not create noise within your organization? And doing that type of analysis and making sure that you're pulling together as much of that valuable data as possible. So I think where this is going to be going. We're also recommending that our customers start, when they're doing their strategic planning, they actually, as they're breaking down things, they map out 4 pieces to make sure that they're getting the value out of that product. Not just the value they want to create, but the metrics they're going to measure against, and the telemetry that you then need to put into your products in order to create the data that you need to create those metrics. And that's something that most companies still aren't doing up in their strategic planning, that sort of carrying that thread all the way through to make sure that you're understanding the value of the data at the end. A lot of our customers are telling us they're getting over 100 metrics a year now that they have analytics teams, or 100 metrics a month, and they don't know if they're valuable or not. They don't know what to do with the click rate metric. It's going up. Is that good or bad? Right? What do our customers really want? And you've got to start defining that up front. So working with our customers through that whole process, I think, is getting them to the right data that they need to be able to see that customer value and prove it.
Yeah, the world for us is moving so fast that I consider that the person who says it can't be done is generally interrupted by someone who is already doing it. And our process here also is that, we continuously look at our data and analytics lifecycle in terms of addressing the gaps, if they are, that are arising in the governance, and improving that data trust in terms of easing that self-service data preparation, integration, and transformation, and continuously modernizing our data integration, because that helps to improve the analytics and the discovery of the data relationships, which means that our architectures are basically have to be modernized in terms of the data fabrics and the data mesh architectures that are coming across, And it all comes upon the consumption of the data, how it is consumed, do we virtualize it for delivering that transparent data access and thus reduce that data movement? It's a continuous process that, from a data lifecycle perspective, we continuously are involved in analyzing, improving, and creating opportunities for our customers through that.
The containerization and modernization of all these platforms means that you have to be very careful how you take your technology roadmap. And if you've been relying on custom developed homegrown solutions, to rely increasingly on best of breed in the market approaches, or the ability to lightly or tightly integrate. So we're seeing, in terms of tooling, a lot of the automation, whether it's RPA or IPA, AI enhanced. The key here is the growth and proliferation of ecosystems. You have to be able to invite an ecosystem of partners. We work with all of the hyperscalers, AWS and Azure and GCP, and we're building with them custom solutions, because you have to be able to create these marketplaces where the company that's trying to solve a complex problem itself, once they have completed their containerization and modernization of their apps and their infrastructure, and they're trying to take it to market, they also have to meet someone on the outside that can engage with their systems. And a lot of times that increasingly that's going to require this ecosystem play.
It's really fascinating. The trend that we observe in our customer base is that people are trying to modernize the tools. They find that the data, the growth in data and the types of applications of data is really driving cross-team collaboration. We see our customers, in really non-traditional departments like marketing and product management and finance, starting to use raw output from digital properties, digital services that they have, in order to understand in real time what these technologies are doing for their customers. They are trying to consolidate. We're seeing a proliferation of tools that the customers are struggling with in using multiple tools. They don't like the replication of data because there's a lot of data that overlaps. And so that costs a lot of money if you have to replicate it. So they're trying to consolidate that into sort of fewer and fewer platforms or tools. And we're also then finding one of the core insights that we had is that this data is huge, and the question was, how do you bend the cost curve of Moore's law? And we're finding that customers are using data sets differently. So scrutinizing, what is this data useful for? How are you going to use it downstream to improve your business? Actually can drive how you manage that data, where you store it, how you analyze it, how you provision access to it, which can then reduce cost and improve the ROI of these data sets, right? And so that's what we found really interesting with our customer set as they're sort of moving more into digital and leveraging data more and more to run those businesses. I'd be really curious to know if you have really briefly any other companies other than yours that you think are, that you feel are good examples of running a competitive real-time business, either, your customers or partners or just somebody from your personal perspective.
Yeah, I would take a generalized concept on that. And I'll continue with the data stream of thought. Any organization that has been able to break those siloed stack, of data utilization and data activation and unification, and has been able to disconnect the systems and effectively utilize out of the proprietary data formats and broken those silos, are the ones which are definitely effective in decreasing the productivity and making the integration possible and reducing the architectural complexity. So, what I feel that the companies, that are going with the data or the data domain-driven distributed architecture on a self-service infrastructure as a platform with a product thinking, basically surrounded by an ecosystem of governance, are the ones that are making really the change in terms of competitive differentiation in the market.
We've got some large financial institutions. And the interesting thing is, I think there's some of the fintech and stuff that came up about 3 to 5 years ago really got some of these companies to have, some of the old traditional companies to have, financial companies to have a fire lit under them. But we're finding, it's interesting, we're finding like one in every region of the world that's truly getting it and truly transforming. And so it'll be interesting to see, we have one in Asia Pac, one in EMEA, and one in the US that are really making amazing strides in how they're able to deliver to the market and the changes that they're making, and the ability to get that, you know, full value stream of data so that they can truly see what's happening in their business. And they're starting to really be able to run their businesses on data, which makes them much more predictable, makes them able to make better business decisions. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens if they end up taking over their markets or not. But financial institutions are ones that I'm really seeing some huge strides in the last couple of years.
You know, MIT's Center for Innovation, I forgot what the acronym is, it's CISR, CISR. They have a really interesting model around digital transformation and digital maturity, looking at operational efficiency versus customer experience. And the companies that really excel and show an improvement in both top line and margin growth are the ones that are able to harness both of these axes, not only, you know, introduce automation, microservices, and all the things that make you operationally efficient, but combining it with customer experience. And it's not an either or. It's not just about, can I increase my NPS? Because there's a relationship between your investment and if to be future ready means that you are both innovative and low cost, and you provide a great customer experience. There's a company that I came across in Southeast Asia that had a partnership with an investment bank, and their software essentially integrates into the ERP, looking at customers' data in order to do cross-sell, upsell, predicting, oh, this client is moving into a different niche. Let's see if we can propose a loan or mortgage. So it's a really interesting example where a software provider created a cross-industry solution for cross-sell, upsell, where their software becomes not just a ERP and management platform, it's also an extension of your business development. And then to be able to operationally execute it is a matter of how digitally future ready you are as a player in these new markets.
I'm going to just kind of drop in one name of a company that I really very much admire, and I can actually say the name because they did a webinar with us. It's financial fintech in Australia. A company called Macquarie Bank has done a fantastic job of embracing digital transformation, leveraging data, migrating to the cloud, unifying technologies and data streams to run their business. And they are moving really quickly and advanced in so many ways on how they pursue digital transformation. So that's a wrap for today. That was a great panel. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Laureen, Tiran, and Shadab for the great discussion. I think now it's time to move on to a live audience Q&A and see if we can answer some of our guest questions. All right. Well, thanks so much to our speakers for a fantastic panel. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think now is the time to really engage the audience and hear if we can get some questions from the audience for our panelists. So I think we've got some that are coming in, and I'm going to just kind of point these to Shadab and Tiran as they come along, and we'll go from there. So let's start with Shadab on this first one. And this is an interesting one. I've thought quite a bit about this challenge over the years, which is, can you talk about leveraging data for customer insights from these data sets that are coming in from these applications and infrastructure, and mine for customer insights, while at the same time managing your obligations towards data privacy and various regulatory things that are out there?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think the stance I will take on that is that data is used to develop if it is used to develop a capability centric digital transformation, then it makes more convergence and alignment on the on how it is going to be how it's going to be from a privacy perspective, from a data ethics perspective, be managed. So and that means that we decompose the capabilities of data to a reasonable level of granularity, and then align those capabilities to the goals and strategy. This will give us the opportunity to evaluate the business value and the technical health of the data, hence give us the capabilities and focus on the features to develop those capability maps that will enable the process of ensuring that we are following a roadmap and a framework of how to secure the data and follow the parameters of responsible use of AI, thus conducting an interdependency analysis continuously, to react to the changes in the data that will give us an ability to create that outlook of the utilization from a monitoring perspective of that utilization also.
Excellent insight. Tehran, I know you help a lot of your clients and customers. Can you maybe give that perspective to this question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question. And I think part of my question is going to be very obvious. The way you overcome privacy is through aggregation and and anonymizing data, and none of that is new. What we're seeing in the markets is new ways of collating data in an anonymized form to create brand new insights. So if you're a healthcare service firm and you're looking at revolutionizing, for instance, clinical trials, how can you partner with a telco carrier to start seeing signals of where customers are and who is sharing information about themselves to become a candidate for a clinical trial? Or if you're a media streaming service provider, how can you use IoT signals such as the battery level on my remote to push an ad that's directed at me? Hey, would you like to buy batteries? And then continue to enjoy this amazing content. So it's about the unexpected ways of enriching your data, creating overlays. If you tap into an iPhone's barometric pressure data and map and align GPS to location, you can discern what floor am I in a building and if it's residential or not, and you can now tell in what is the context of me experiencing a video or other content. So to me, that's the new wave of innovation.
Yeah, Bruno, I do want to expound upon a little bit more. There are three components from an AI perspective that we definitely like to remain focused on. One is the transparency of understanding that AI model and decision making. Second is the ability for having that explainability in terms of understanding the reasoning, how that AI is used to make those decisions. And third, which is the most important one, is to have that mathematical certainty behind those decisions, how to prove those decisions, to our customer. And more, when we are making these decisions based upon automation, if we have these three components, utilized within a framework of responsible AI, that kind of helps the organizations to create that level of credibility and trust of the utilization of those AI focused products and services.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it's so dependent also on the type of industry and type of market you're in. The modern insurance companies, like car insurance companies, are using all kinds of telemetry on the phone to determine how fast you were going, whether how fast you were braking, all of these things that help them with your permission, with a human's permission, right? If you sign up for this and we can monitor your driving, we can give you better pricing, right? So this is consent, where it is a known consent and you are providing it. In other cases, it's, we live in a very different world, obviously, than insurance, but, we live in a world where, we have a multi-tenant platform ourselves, and we would like to understand what our customers are doing and in order to build better capabilities and help them and support them and all that. For us and for our customers, there's been a lot of discussion about how do you leverage anonymized data, right? Data that is sort of aggregated and anonymized, that can be leveraged to understand sort of a customer insights and customer behavior and other things that are relevant to improving the customer outcomes, but without exposing any of that data, without having humans look at it, without in any way leaking something that might turn out to be private. It's a fascinating question, and it's the evolution of this through the various privacy laws like CCPA and GDPR. Like this is a very new space. For all those of you who are interested in this subject, I'm in the middle of reading this book called The System Error by some Stanford professors, which is, I think, fabulous and touches on these topics, and I highly recommend it, even though I haven't finished it yet. But let's, anything else to add, Karen? You look like you're...
Yeah, I'm seeing there are several follow-up questions that are very much in the same line. One was around what are the key challenges when it comes to aggregating data, and another one is around a suggestion of monitoring social media signals. And back to your point, Bruno, if it's anonymized, then the challenges are going to be data is so available. What data should I pick and what insights should I be pursuing? But the other one, going back to your point, Bruno, around permission, is there's a fine line might have implied or explicit consent, but there's also a fine line not to cross over the creep factor. Because if you're tracking what I'm doing on social media for a different purpose than I thought I was giving my consent, and now you're proposing me as for instance, clinical trial candidate because I talked about urinary tract infection, now you're crossing the line over the creep factor, whether or not I give you consent. So I think the challenge, especially with PII or with consent-based data aggregation, is how do you also retain trust, which is the most critical factor with the consumers or with the folks on whose data you are generating these insights.
Absolutely. This is so spot on. And, the question is what should versus what could you do, right, with this, right? And you got to think about that hard. And, we could spend another hour just talking about, what's happening here. But let me go to this double click that I think Aman asked, is sort of what's the biggest challenge in aggregating and consolidating this data to draw meaningful insights, right? Now we're shifting from, what should you do and how do you do it? And then to what are the challenges of actually getting the meaningful data from all of these touch points in the system. And maybe we can start with Shadab again. Like, sure. How do you kind of, what's all this data and what are the challenges of getting it all into place?
Yeah, what we have experienced is that the integration into the cognitive projects is definitely with existing processes and systems the biggest hurdle in terms of embracing the data, to utilize that data, then effectively to build upon that data, to provide that insight. Also, what we are seeing is that, and we are experiencing also, technologies and expertise are pretty expensive and are becoming more, they're becoming rare in, to attain in that way. And also another thing is, around the data literacy and the data fluency and the data democratization, where the understanding of the cognitive technologies and how do they work is not fully embraced and understood, and effectively we don't have those people who can do the translation of that in that. So I feel that the foremost emphasis is on how to integrate that into those cognitive processes while we are trying to change the existing processes. So which also means that there needs to be a huge emphasis of change management that needs to go along with that, to have a continual dialogue to understand the need and then the audience of who is going to receive data, who is going to get impacted from that data, who is going to react to that data, so that there is a clear understanding in terms of creating that maturity that is needed.
Yep. Kiran, any comments?
I think Shadab covered it comprehensively. That really covers all bases.
Got it. I'll add our perspective, because we are in the business of getting data from disparate sources and helping our customers make sense of it. There really are multiple different challenges that exist. One is many of these data sets are generated in different formats, right? They come in as structured, as unstructured data, as semi-structured data. They come in from various layers of the customer interface. Sometimes it's your own code, which is easier to control, than infrastructure, than third-party services. A lot of services that go into building a digital application are third-party built, right? Payment services and database services and IaaS services and PaaS services and all these things, right? All of these things contain various bits of important and insightful telemetry that might be useful in creating and comprehensive visibility and insight for a customer. So number one, it's finding where the data is. Number two, figuring out how to get all the formats. Number three, dealing with things like unstructured nature of data, like agile development world, like the every day there's a new bit of data and it looks different than the yesterday's data, and it has a different schema and all of this stuff. And not just finding where it is, but also figuring out how to make sense of it all, putting it all together into something, is a big challenge, right? And I think as you guys are thinking about picking your tooling and things like that, you got to think about how effective are they at, number one, spreading its wings and tentacles to get the data, making sense of that data, dealing with the unstructured nature and high velocity and rate of change. So those are some of the challenges that we see with our customers with these types of data sets. We have maybe one more minute or 2 minutes for questions. So I'm just going to jump into somebody else asked a question. I think it's a good follow-up, and I'm trying to read it here. How are organizations kickstarting and strengthening their information governance initiatives to support their broader competitive goals? So again, it's a double click on this data issue, and how do you align these objectives? So if you can maybe talk about, Shadab, how do you internally at your company do that? And then from Tiran, we can see how are your clients doing these kinds of efforts. Tiran, I think you are on mute. Shadab,
sorry. Yeah, our experiences are where, when we, in the absence of our governance framework, any framework, people do whatever they want to do. So we instituted frameworks that help businesses design, build, and deploy systems and effectively utilize data that can be trusted. And we based that upon determination of the problems and effectively understanding the scope and the requirements that were related to that. That helped us to identify those potential threats that may undermine or shift that data issues in that way. And effectively, we build that framework with the monitoring of data, to ensure that data does not, skew the performance or the QA aspects or quality assurance aspects of the data, which helped us also to ensure that we are providing good, accurate, data consistently, to ensure that the business cases, the use cases that translated in those business cases are fully, realizing the value of the data. So it's a continuous process from a plan, do, check, act perspective, that we continue to follow, where we learn from our governance implementation, then we adjust it to deal with the volatility, that comes from the data by examining it, by inspecting it, then monitoring it, and then continuously adjusting the business processes around that.
Excellent. And Tiran, for the last 30 seconds.
We've all experienced the challenge when we talk about democratization of data. We all see the report from ops and the report from finance and the report from different parts of the functional areas look differently, and it's up to whoever did an Excel manipulation. So when you democratize data and make it accessible to users, sometimes the biggest question that companies need to ask themselves is who owns that single source of truth, and how do I enable my enterprise to share data across my organizational silos? And this is not just a technical problem, and the MDM at the core of this, and some of our biggest, largest enterprises, global firms who had been struggling with this, what we have found works is really defining whether it's the chief digital officer or kind of an organization that sits outside of the technical realm and oversees the assembly of views so that you can have a single view of your customer or your customer's customer, and defining those elements that Shadab touched upon of governance on up to what point do I pre-process data and at what point do I make it accessible for users to create their custom views without creating conflicting views.
Got it. Thank you so much. Look, it was a fabulous event, excellent panel. Thank you so much. Great questions. I love when we have an engaged audience. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, audience. Thank you, CDO Club. We're looking forward to seeing you in future events. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you did as well. Thank you.